Lily stood behind the counter of the small cafe. Tying her apron while taking a deep breath, she had worked long hours all week. But she always tried her best to keep a smile on her face. The morning crowd was already building up, and the smell of fresh coffee filled the air. She liked this part of her day because most customers were kind and friendly, but today would be different. And she had no idea what was coming. The cafe door opened sharply, and a tall, wealthy-looking man stepped inside, his expensive suit, shiny watch, and cold expression made everyone look at him. His name was Mr. Carson, and his reputation was known around the area. He was rich, powerful, and rude to anyone he believed was beneath him. Lily noticed him walk in, and she quietly greeted him with her usual polite smile. She said, "Good morning, sir. How can I help you?" But he didn't even look at her. Instead, he waved his hand at her like she was unimportant. He said loudly, "Finally, someone showed up. I was starting to think this place had no staff." His voice was cold and sharp. Several customers turned their heads toward the scene. Lily felt embarrassed, but she kept her calm and replied softly, "I'm sorry, sir. We're a little busy today." "What would you like to order?" Mr. Carson looked her up and down like she wasn't worth his time. He smirked and said, "What I would like is a waitress who knows how to do her job." His words cut like a blade. Lily lowered her eyes and quietly took his order. She didn't respond to his insult because she needed this job. Her mother's medicine, rent, food, everything depended on her small earnings. She couldn't risk losing the job no matter how badly he treated her. When Lily returned with his coffee, he made another comment. "Did you even put sugar in this, or do you not know the difference?" Lily explained gently that she prepared it exactly as he asked. But he didn't want to listen. He grabbed the cup, took a sip, and exaggerated a disgusted face to embarrass her. Then he said loudly, "Terrible. Absolutely terrible." His voice echoed through the cafe. Some customers exchanged uncomfortable looks. Some whispered, others felt sorry for Lily. But nobody said a word. Lily apologized again, even though she did nothing wrong. She calmly offered to remake the drink, hoping he would stop instead. He leaned back in his chair and said to the people around him, "This is why people should study and get real skills. Otherwise, you end up like her." His finger pointed directly at Lily as if she was an example of failure. A few people gasped quietly. Lily's heart sank. But she forced herself to stay strong. She had faced harder moments in her life. But the public humiliation still hurt deeply as she walked back to the counter. She heard him say, slow, unprofessional, and clearly not talented. The words repeated in her mind like a painful echo. If only he knew the truth. If only he knew that the same girl he was insulting once played piano on the biggest stage of her city. If only he knew she once dreamed of becoming a professional musician. But life had pushed her away from that dream. Her father's sudden death, her mother's illness, the heavy bills. She had no choice but to leave music behind and work wherever she could find a job. Still, Lily never stopped loving music. Sometimes after her shift, she sat alone in her small apartment and played soft melodies on a cheap keyboard she bought from a thrift shop. Music was the only place she felt free, but here in front of the crowd, she didn't feel free at all. She felt small, powerless, and judged by a man who knew nothing about her life or her struggles. The cafe owner noticed what was happening. She watched Lily's trembling hands and the sad look in her eyes. She wanted to step in, but Lily signaled that she was okay. She didn't want to create more attention. She preferred to quietly take the insults and finish her shift. But deep inside, something was beginning to shake. Something she had buried for years, the feeling that maybe she deserved more than this. Maybe she wasn't weak. Maybe she wasn't talentless. Maybe she could prove everyone wrong, including the arrogant man who mocked her without even knowing her name. But for now, All she could do was swallow her pain, bow her head, and continue doing her job, still. This moment of humiliation would spark the change she never saw coming. A change that would reveal her true gift to the entire crowd, and silence every insult she ever heard, including his. Lily stepped into the storage room for a moment. Closing the door quietly behind her, she wasn't crying. But her chest felt tight as if something heavy was pressing on her heart. She leaned against the wall, letting out a slow breath while the noise of the cafe faded behind her. She kept replaying Mr. Carson's cruel words in her mind. Every insult, every mocking laugh, every judgment felt like a shadow trying to swallow her. But Lily had lived with shadows for years, and this one was not new to her. She touched the small silver necklace around her neck. It was the last gift from her father, who always told her, "You have music in your soul," his voice used to warm her heart. But now it brought a soft ache. She missed him more than anything. He was the reason she ever touched a piano. He was the reason she believed she could become someone special one day after he passed away. Everything changed. Her dreams were pushed aside, not because she wanted to, but because life forced her to. After a moment, she wiped her face, straightened her apron, and walked back out. She refused to let one rude man break her spirit. She had survived much worse when she returned to the cafe floor. Her coworkers gave her supportive looks, but they didn't say anything. They all knew Lily kind, hardworking, always calm. She never wanted drama, never wanted to defend herself. She just kept going, like a quiet warrior fighting battles alone. The rest of the shift passed slowly. Every time Lily walked by Mr. Carson's table, she could feel his eyes on her, judging her, waiting to find another reason to complain. But she moved with steady hands, careful steps, and gentle manners. She didn't want to give him any space to insult her again. Finally, after what felt like hours, he finished his meal and stood up. He left without saying thank you, without looking at her, and without leaving a tip. His last words to his business partner were loud enough for Lily to hear. "People like her will never rise above their place." Those words stung more than the others. She lowered her eyes and took a quiet breath, but deep inside, the same small spark that awoke earlier started to grow. She didn't understand why yet, but she could feel it. It was like a distant melody calling her name, reminding her of something she once loved deeply. When Lily finished her shift, she collected her things, changed into her sweater, and walked outside. The evening air was cool, brushing against her tired face. As she walked toward the bus stop, memories of her past began rising again. She could almost see herself as a little girl, sitting beside her father at the old piano in their living room, her fingers trembling over the keys as he encouraged her gently. "Try again, Lily. You're doing great." She remembered the melody they created together, the laughter, the joy in his eyes. Those moments felt like a different lifetime, but they were still alive inside her. Back then, people did not mock her. People admired her. Teachers praised her for her natural talent. Music judges complimented her passion. Her dream was to play on grand stages, to make her father proud, but life turned cruel too quickly. Her father's sudden heart attack, her mother's illness, their unpaid bills. Lily had no choice but to leave music school and step into the real world. She told herself it was temporary, but temporary became permanent. And slowly, she hid her gift away, believing the world no longer had space for it. As she waited for the bus, she noticed a small group of children gathered near a street musician. The man was playing a soft melody on a worn-out piano. His fingers moved gracefully despite the instrument's age. Lily stopped for a moment, feeling something warm rise inside her. Music still spoke to her, even after all these years. And tonight, after the humiliation she faced, that melody felt like a message. It whispered, "You are more than they think. One of the children pointed at Lily and asked the street musician, "Can she try?" The man smiled and nodded, and Lily's heart skipped a beat. She shook her head shyly, waving her hands. But the gentle smile on the musician's face made her pause. She slowly stepped forward and placed her fingers on the keys. Her touch was hesitant at first, but the moment she pressed the first note, something awakened inside her. The world seemed to fade, leaving only her, the piano, and the music in her heart. A soft melody filled the air, delicate and emotional. The children listened quietly, their eyes wide. The musician nodded with respect. And for the first time in years, Lily felt alive again. The melody flowed from her fingertips effortlessly, as if it had been waiting inside her all this time. Hidden but never lost, when she finished, a small crowd clapped warmly. Lily stepped back, her cheeks slightly red. She felt shy, but also strangely proud. The musician told her, "You have a gift. Don't hide it." His words echoed deeply inside her chest. As Lily walked home, she felt a strange mix of emotions. She was still hurt by Mr. Carson's harsh words, but they no longer felt as heavy. Instead, she felt a growing strength, a quiet courage. Something inside her whispered that her story was not finished. Something was changing. Something big was coming. Something that would make the whole world see the truth of who she really was, especially the man who insulted her. The next morning, Lily woke up earlier than usual. Even though she was tired from the long shift and the emotional weight from yesterday, something inside her felt different. She couldn't explain it. But it was as if a tiny flame had started burning inside her, a flame she thought had died long ago. She sat up in her small room, rubbing her eyes, and her gaze fell on the old keyboard on her desk, the one she bought from a thrift shop years ago. It was scratched and missing one key, but it still worked. Last night's moment with the street musician still echoed in her mind. The softness of the keys, the feeling of the melody. The applause it all made her heart beat a little faster. She reached out and gently touched the keyboard. The memory of Mr. Carson's insults returned, heavy and sharp, but this time, instead of hurting her, they reminded her of something else, her promise to her father. He used to say, no matter how hard life becomes, your music will always be your strength. For the first time in years, Lily wondered if he had been right all along. Still, she shook the thoughts away. Today, she had another long shift, bills to pay, and a mother who needed medicine. Dreams were beautiful, but reality was demanding. She quickly got ready, tied her hair, grabbed her bag, and left for work. When she reached the cafe, her coworkers greeted her warmly. They had all seen how she was treated yesterday and felt bad for her. One of them, Mia, whispered, "If that man comes again, I swear I'll pour coffee on his shoes." Lily laughed softly, appreciating the support, but knowing Mia would never actually do it. Lily simply replied, "It's okay. Let's just have a good day." She didn't want her pain to become anyone else's anger, but fate had a different plan. As lunchtime approached, the cafe door opened, and the atmosphere shifted immediately. Mr. Carson walked in again, this time with two business partners dressed as fancy as him. Their conversation was loud, confident, and full of arrogance. Lily felt her stomach twist for a moment, but she steadied herself. She took a deep breath and approached the table with her polite smile. "Good afternoon. How may I help you?" Mr. Carson smirked when he saw her. "Ah, it's you again," he said, as if her presence somehow annoyed him. His words were sharp, but Lily stood firm. She took their orders carefully, making sure not to make any mistake. But Mr. Carson wasn't looking for a mistake. He simply wanted entertainment at her expense as she placed the drinks on the table. He leaned back and said loudly enough for nearby customers to hear, "You know, I don't understand why people hire untrained staff." His friends chuckled. Lily felt her cheeks warm, but she remained calm. "Is there anything else you need, sir?" she asked gently. He looked at her with a mischievous grin. "Yes, actually," he said. "Tell me something. What do you plan to do with your life? You can't possibly be doing this forever." Lily froze for a moment. She didn't expect such a direct attack. His question wasn't curious, it was mocking. He wanted her to admit she had no dreams. No path, no future, something inside her, twisted. But she didn't want to give him the satisfaction of seeing her hurt. She simply replied, "I'm doing the best I can," and walked away. But behind her, she heard him whisper to his friends. "People like her don't dream, they just survive." His friends laughed again. The sound pierced her heart like a needle. The cafe owner, Mrs. Daniels, had been standing near the counter and heard everything. Her face tightened with frustration. She had always admired Lily's dedication and kindness, and she couldn't stand watching her be humiliated for no reason. She walked over to Lily and asked softly, "Are you okay?" Lily nodded. But her eyes said something else, something deeper. Mrs. Daniels placed a comforting hand on her shoulder and whispered, "You don't deserve this," at that moment. Mia joined them and whispered excitedly, "Lily, did you hear about the charity gala tonight at the Grand Hotel next door?" Lily shook her head. Mia continued, "They're letting anyone perform during the open mic segment. They have a grand piano on stage." A real one. Lily's heart skipped. She stared at Mia with wide eyes. The image of the grand piano appeared in her mind smooth. Shiny, beautiful. It had been years since she touched a real piano. The thought sent a shiver through her. She quickly shook her head. No, I can't. I haven't played properly in years," but Mrs. Daniels stepped closer. "Lily, you have something inside you," she said softly. "I've seen glimpses of it. Don't hide it anymore." Her words were warm, encouraging, and full of belief for the first time since her father died. Lily felt as if someone else saw her not as a waitress, not as someone struggling, but as someone who held something extraordinary inside her. She didn't say yes, but she didn't say no either. Something inside her trembled, not with fear, but with possibility. And at a table across the room, Mr. Carson laughed loudly again. He didn't know that the girl he mocked for entertainment was on the edge of doing something that would shock him and everyone else more than he could ever imagine. Lily sat on the rooftop of her apartment building later that evening. Her arms wrapped around her knees as the wind played with her hair. The sky above was painted in soft shades of orange and purple, but she barely noticed it. Her mind was racing. Should she go to the charity gala? Could she really step onto a stage again after all these years? It felt impossible, and yet something inside her kept whispering, "What if?" She had finished her shift in silence, not answering when Mia or Mrs. Daniels encouraged her one last time. Her hands were still trembling from serving Mr. Carson again. He had left the cafe smug and satisfied, completely unaware that his words had stirred something deep inside her, not weakness, but fire. She looked at her fingers. The same ones that once danced across piano keys like they belonged there. Could they still do that? Or had time stolen that magic away, down below? She heard distant music floating in from the hotel nearby. Her heart beat faster. She didn't own a formal dress or fancy shoes. All she had were her jeans, a clean blouse, and a pair of flats. But something told her it didn't matter tonight. This wasn't about looking rich or sounding perfect. This was about proving something to herself and to the world. She stood up suddenly, as if her body had decided before her mind could stop it. She grabbed her bag and headed downstairs. Her mother, resting in the bedroom, opened her eyes when Lily entered. "Where are you going?" she asked gently. Lily smiled and kissed her forehead, "Just out for a little while." "I'll be back soon." Her mother didn't ask further, but in her tired eyes there was a flicker of pride, as if she knew. The streets were lit up with golden lamps and soft laughter. The Grand Hotel stood tall and glowing at the corner, with banners outside that read Charity Gala, Open Stage, All Welcome. Lily hesitated at the door, her heart pounding. People in beautiful clothes walked past her. Smiling and holding glasses of sparkling drinks, she felt small, invisible, like a shadow trying to step into the light. But then, she remembered the crowd of children listening to her play last night. She remembered the look on the street musician's face. And the warmth of their applause, she remembered her father's words. Music is your voice when the world won't listen, with one deep breath. She walked inside. The lobby was buzzing with conversation and light. Her shoes clicked softly against the polished floor as she followed the signs to the event hall. When she stepped in, her eyes immediately found at the grand piano at the center of the stage. Black and beautiful, standing under golden lights like a dream she used to have. She approached the event manager near the stage and quietly asked, "Can I sign up to play?" The woman smiled warmly. "Of course, what's your name?" Lily gave her name. And the woman nodded. "You're just in time. You'll go on in 10 minutes. 10 minutes. That was all she had to prepare. 10 minutes to gather years of courage. She sat in the corner, knees shaking, as a jazz singer finished his performance to loud applause. The next performer was a boy playing the violin, and he was amazing. Lily's confidence started to slip again. What was she doing here? She didn't belong in this world anymore. But just as she was about to stand up and walk out, she heard someone say loudly from the crowd, "That's Mr. Carson, isn't it?" Her heart froze. She turned and saw him entering the hall with his usual confident walk, surrounded by two more businessmen. He was laughing, not a care in the world. Lily's throat tightened. Did the universe send him here to test her one last time? But then something inside her changed. Her fear began to fade, replaced with a quiet calm. Maybe this was how it had to be. Maybe he had to be here, not to break her, but to witness what he tried to bury. The event manager called her name. Lily stood up. Every step to the stage, feeling like walking through fire. She didn't look at the crowd. She didn't search for faces. She sat at the piano and placed her fingers gently on the keys. They trembled slightly, then steadied. She closed her eyes and let her heart lead the way. The first note rang out, soft and clear, and just like that. The noise of the world faded. Only the music remained, flowing through her hands like it had always been there, waiting for the right moment to return. And somewhere in the crowd, Mr. Carson leaned forward in his chair. His smirk slowly fading as the girl he once called unskilled transformed the entire room with nothing but a melody. The room grew silent, but it wasn't an uncomfortable silence. It was the kind that wrapped around every person like a soft blanket. Lily's hands moved gently across the piano keys, releasing a melody that was both tender and haunting. Each note carried a piece of her story, a hidden sorrow. A dream that had once been locked away, now it was spilling out through the music. Raw and beautiful, she didn't look at the audience. She didn't need to. The music was her shield and her voice. It was her way of speaking the words she had never said about loss, about pain, about strength, and the crowd felt every note. Every sound from that piano was like a secret being whispered to their hearts. Mr. Carson sat near the back, completely still. His smirk had disappeared within the first 30 seconds. Now his expression was unreadable. His business partners leaned closer. One of them whispering, "She's incredible," but Mr. Carson didn't respond. He simply stared at the young woman on stage. The same one he had insulted only hours ago. The same one who now held the attention of the entire room without saying a single word. Lily continued to play, her hands flowing with emotion. The melody shifted into something brighter, hopeful, almost like sunlight after rain. People in the audience began leaning forward in their seats. Drawn in by the feeling, some closed their eyes, letting the music take them somewhere far away from their daily lives. A few had tears in their eyes, though they didn't know exactly why. She reached the final part of her piece, a section she had composed long ago but never performed. It was her father's favorite, something they created together when she was just a little girl. The moment she played those notes, her heart swelled. It felt like he was there, sitting beside her again, guiding her fingers with gentle hands. And for a second, she felt peace when the last note finally faded. Silence filled the room again, but this time it was charged with emotion. The audience didn't move, didn't speak, as if they needed a moment to return from wherever the music had taken them. Then, slowly, someone began clapping. Then another and another, within seconds. The entire hall erupted into applause. Loud and heartfelt, Lily stood from the piano bench, her hands shaking slightly. Her eyes searched the room now, nervous and unsure. But the response was overwhelming. People were standing, clapping with wide smiles and even teary eyes. Someone shouted, "Bravo!" and another said, "She's amazing." The event manager rushed to the stage with a bright smile, taking Lily's hand and raising it slightly as if she had just won a great prize. "Everyone, let's give another round of applause for Lily," she said. And the crowd cheered even louder. Lily blushed and smiled, overwhelmed by the love pouring from people she had never met. For years, she believed she was forgotten, small, invisible, but now she was seen, truly seen. And in the middle of the crowd, she saw him, Mr. Carson, still seated, still watching. Their eyes met for a brief second, and he quickly looked away. Adjusting his jacket with a stiff motion, his business partners clapped enthusiastically, whispering to each other. But Mr. Carson stayed silent. The proud, arrogant man who once made her feel worthless was now the one sitting quietly in a room that celebrated her. As Lily stepped down from the stage, guests started approaching her. "You should be performing professionally," said one woman. "Do you have an album?" asked another. A man in a tuxedo handed her his card. "I run a music school," he said. "I'd be honored to have you teach or even perform in our next event." Lily thanked them politely, her voice soft but glowing with pride. She wasn't used to praise, but it filled her like warm light. Not because it made her feel famous, but because it reminded her of who she really was. She had never lost her gift. She had simply hidden it, waiting for the right moment to share it again in the back of the hall. Mr. Carson finally stood and walked out without saying a word. His exit was unnoticed by most, but not by Lily. She watched him go, not with anger, but with quiet strength. He had once tried to break her spirit, but now he had witnessed what she was truly made of. And for Lily, that was enough. She didn't need revenge. Applause was louder than any insult could ever be. As she walked toward the exit with the business card in her hand and music still dancing in her chest, she knew this was only the beginning. Lily walked through the crowd with her hands still slightly trembling. Her performance had ended, but her heart hadn't calmed down. She could still feel the piano under her fingertips. The weight of the music she had carried inside her for years, now finally released into the world. The applause echoed in her ears, and every smile she saw in the audience reminded her that she had done something brave, something beautiful. She passed the event manager, who gave her a proud nod and whispered, "That was unforgettable." Lily could only smile and nod. Her voice still caught in her throat as she moved through the room. Guests continued to approach her. Some gave her compliments. Some asked if she was a professional musician. A few even said they had tears in their eyes when she played. Each word felt like a soft bandage over old wounds. She had spent so many years thinking her talent was lost, but tonight proved otherwise. She spotted Mia standing near the back with Mrs. Daniels, both clapping with bright smiles. They had followed her to the hotel after their shift ended, even though she didn't know it. They believed in her before she believed in herself, and now they were seeing her not as a waitress, but as an artist. Lily rushed to them, and they pulled her into a warm hug. "You were amazing," Mia said. "I mean, I knew you could play, but that was something else." Mrs. Daniels gently touched her shoulder. "You reminded us all that greatness doesn't need a spotlight. It just needs the courage to be seen." Lily couldn't hold back a small tear that slipped down her cheek. "Thank you," she whispered, "for everything," before she could say more. A voice interrupted. "Excuse me, Miss Lily." She turned to see a man in a navy blue suit holding out a card. "I'm Robert Hale. I work with one of the city's major music foundations. We organize concerts, train young musicians, and support rising talents." Lily blinked in surprise. "Oh? He interrupted gently. "You're not just anything. I've been to hundreds of performances, but what you did tonight, it wasn't only music, it was emotion. You made people feel. That's rare." He handed her his card. "If you're open to it, we'd love to invite you to perform at our winter charity concert next month. It's a huge event, hundreds of people live streamed. Professional platform." Lily's hands trembled again, but this time, it wasn't from fear, it was disbelief. Was this really happening? Before she could even answer, another man approached, an older gentleman with gray hair and soft eyes. "I was moved by your playing. I own a small recording studio downtown. We could record your music and help you release it online. 2 opportunities in one night." Lily didn't know how to react. All she had hoped for was to be heard once. Now doors she had never dreamed of were opening all at once. But not all eyes in the room were kind. Across the room, Mr. Carson stood near the exit, silent and stiff. He hadn't clapped, hadn't smiled. He watched everything with a strange expression, part guilt, part disbelief. His business partners had been amazed by Lily's performance, and he knew it. One of them even asked him, "Wasn't she the girl you said had no talent?" Mr. Carson didn't answer. Instead, he turned away and walked out of the hall without saying a word. Not even a glance back. He had nothing left to say. His arrogance had been silenced not by anger or confrontation, but by something far more powerful. Truth. Lily didn't notice him leave. She was too busy answering questions, smiling shyly, and holding the business cards she never expected to receive. Tonight had changed everything. Not just her future, but her belief in herself. As the evening ended, she stepped outside with Mia and Mrs. Daniels. The city lights glowed above them, and for the first time in years, Lily felt like she was standing in the light too. She looked at the sky and whispered softly, "I did it." Dad, her father, may not have been in the audience tonight, but she felt him there in every note, in every smile, in every tear that had fallen quietly during her performance. And she knew, wherever he was proud. A week had passed since the charity gala, but Lily was still waking up every day, feeling like she was dreaming. Her quiet life as a waitress had completely changed. The music school had called her twice, asking her to visit for a meeting. The recording studio had scheduled a session for the coming weekend. And the winter charity concert organizers had even posted her performance clip on social media, had already crossed over 400,000 views. People were commenting things like, "Who is she? That melody broke me." And real talent finally seen. Lily had no social media. So Mia showed her the posts on her phone during breaks at the cafe. At first, Lily was overwhelmed, but slowly, she began to smile more, walk taller, and believe in herself again. One evening, while taking out the trash behind the cafe, she noticed a man standing near the alley's edge. His posture was familiar, and as the light hit his face, she recognized him. It was Mr. Carson. He looked different now. Not dressed in a sharp suit, but in a simple jacket. His expression wasn't cold or smug. It was uncertain. Lily hesitated but walked toward him slowly. He turned as he heard her steps, their eyes meeting in the soft glow of the street lamp. For a moment, neither spoke. The silence between them felt heavier than all their past words. "I owe you an apology," Mr. Carson finally said. His voice wasn't loud this time. It was low, honest. "I was wrong about you. Deeply wrong." Lily said nothing at first. Watching him carefully, she had imagined this moment in many ways. But never like this, never with him looking smaller than before. "More human than monster, I judged you without knowing you," he continued. "And I mocked something I didn't understand. I saw someone who served tables and thought that was all she was, but that night, when you played, I've never felt something like that." Lily took a breath. Calm and steady. "Why did you come?" she asked softly. He looked down at the ground, then back at her. "Because I wanted to say it to your face. Not online, not through someone else, just from me to you. I don't expect you to forgive me." Lily thought for a moment. She wasn't angry anymore, not because he didn't deserve it, but because she had moved beyond that moment. She had grown, her life had shifted, and holding on to the hurt felt like holding a stone when she could hold the sky instead. "I accept your apology," she said quietly. "But not for your sake, for mine." Mr. Carson nodded slowly. "Thank you," he said, and then turned and walked away into the night. He didn't ask for her number, didn't offer money, didn't try to explain further, and Lily was glad. Some things didn't need to be fixed. Just acknowledged. Later that night, she sat beside her mother, playing soft melodies on the keyboard while her mother rested on the couch. Her mother listened with her eyes closed, smiling gently. "Your father would be so proud," she whispered. Lily stopped playing and looked over. "I feel like he's with me every time I touch the keys." And it was true. Music had become her way of healing, her way of remembering, her way of living fully again. The girl who once hid behind an apron and polite smiles had found her voice, and it was louder than ever before. The next day, Lily met with the recording studio team. They treated her like a professional, not a beginner. They listened to her ideas, asked about her story, and gave her a space that felt safe and creative. In that room, surrounded by instruments and microphones, Lily recorded the piece she played at the charity gala. She named it Echoes of a Waitress, a tribute to where she came from, and how far she had come when she listened to the final version. She had tears in her eyes, not because it was perfect, but because it was honest. Every note carried her story, every struggle, every insult, every quiet dream she had held onto in the shadows. She didn't know if her music would go viral again, or if her name would become famous. But she knew one thing. She would never go back to hiding. Never let anyone tell her she wasn't enough. She had proved it to the world, and more importantly, to herself. The winter charity concert arrived sooner than Lily expected. The large hall at the City Music Theater was packed, bright lights, cameras, and an audience of over 1,000 people. It was the biggest crowd she had ever performed for. And yet, as she stood backstage in a simple white dress, she didn't feel fear. She felt ready. Her hands were steady now, her heart calm. Months ago, she was just a girl behind a counter, serving coffee with a forced smile. But now, she was stepping onto a stage, not as a waitress, but as an artist, a survivor, and a voice that had finally been heard. The host called her name. "Please welcome Miss Lily performing her original composition, Echoes of a Waitress." The audience clapped politely, not yet knowing what they were about to experience. Lily walked across the stage, the spotlight following her every step. She sat at the grand piano, took one deep breath, and closed her eyes. The moment her fingers touched the keys, the world around her faded again, and only the music remained. The melody she played was soft at first, gentle, thoughtful, like a memory being whispered. Then it grew, piece by piece, into something richer, more powerful. The emotions built like waves, each one crashing deeper than the last. Her music told a story of pain, quiet strength, lost dreams, and finally hope. The room was silent except for the sound of the piano. Not a single cough or shuffle, just complete stillness. Lily's music held the entire room in its arms, letting every listener feel something personal and real. People in the audience leaned forward, drawn to the honesty in each note, in the front row. Mia and Mrs. Daniels sat proudly, eyes shining with tears. They knew every piece of Lily's journey, every insult. Every night she stayed late to wash dishes. Every moment she doubted herself, and now? They were watching her shine like she was born for this. Lily reached the final part of her composition. A soft return to the melody she played that night at the hotel. The room felt like it was holding its breath. And when the last note echoed through the hall and faded into silence, the crowd remained still for a second longer, as if they needed a moment to believe what they just heard was real. Then came the applause, louder than she had ever imagined. It wasn't polite. It was thunderous, emotional, and full of admiration. People stood up, clapping, cheering, whistling. The entire hall became a wave of praise, and Lily, still seated at the piano, felt a tear slip down her cheek, but it wasn't from sadness. It was relief. It was joy backstage after the performance. Journalists waited to talk to her. Students from music schools asked for photos. Several managers from music companies offered to represent her. One of them said, "We can take you worldwide, your story. Your talent, it's unforgettable." But Lily didn't feel rushed. She thanked them all politely and smiled. She had learned something over the past few months. Her worth was not in how big the crowd was, or how famous she became. It was in her truth, her story, and the music she made from the life she lived. As she walked outside that night, snow was beginning to fall. The world was quiet and peaceful. She walked slowly, her coat wrapped tightly around her. In her bag was a small envelope, a handwritten letter she had received before the concert. She stopped under a street lamp, opened it, and began to read. "Dear Lily, I watched your video from the hotel performance. I was speechless. I'm sorry for how I treated you, for the words I said, and for the way I made you feel. I've started volunteering at a local shelter just once a week, but it's something I'm trying to become better. Thank you for opening my eyes." Carson. Lily folded the letter and placed it back in her bag. She didn't smile. She didn't cry. She simply walked forward, her breath soft in the cold air. She had already forgiven him, not because he asked, but because she had learned that forgiveness frees the one who gives it more than the one who receives it. Ahead of her, the city lights sparkled. She could hear the soft sound of street musicians in the distance. Children laughing, snow crunching under boots. And somewhere in that beautiful noise of life, her melody still echoed. Lily was no longer just the girl who served coffee. She was a reminder that talent can be hidden, greatness can wear simple clothes, and kindness can rise even when the world tries to keep it small. She had found her voice, and she would never let it be silenced again.